If you could add fine-grained permissions to your app in under 10 minutes without building it from scratch, would you do it? Today, I'll show you how to build a fully working, low latency, highly available, and massively scalable permission system using SpiceDB and AuthZed Cloud. And by the end, we'll be checking live permissions in our app. AuthZed Cloud hosts SpiceDB, which is an open source permissions database inspired by Google Zanzibar. It's all about centralizing and scaling access control for your applications. It's designed to handle millions of checks per second with consistent, centralized access rules. So whether you're building a small side project or a global scale SaaS application, you get the same performance and reliability without managing the infrastructure yourself. And we know that writing custom authorization code is generally a bad idea. So let's get started. Start by logging into the AuthZed Cloud account. Once you're there, click the Create button to create your permission system. Choose either prod or dev based on what your requirement is and give it a name. We will call it blog permission, and you can select the underlying data store. Right now you can choose CockroachDB. You can choose an update channel if you want regular or rapid updates. We're going to choose regular. And then we'll define our deployments that run as part of this permission system. So we can give it a name. In this case, we will call it US East 1. We will choose the deployment in US East 1. We'll choose 2 virtual CPUs for our compute and 3 replicas for read latency, and we're going to hit the save button. And that's it. If you were building your own permissions backend from scratch, how long would this have taken? We're almost ready to use our permission system, but first we have to configure access to the permission system. So click on the Access tab right here and create a new service account. I'm going to call it blog app again. Hit the save button. We'll now click on the service account name to create a token. Now click on the token button and hit the create token button. Give a name for the token and a description before hitting the save button. And remember that this token will be displayed just the one time. So copy it and make sure you store it somewhere safe like a key vault or a secrets manager. Once that's done, we need to create a role to configure access. And remember, you can create different roles with different permissions within your service account. So go ahead and click on roles and then click on the create roles button and give it a name such as admin role. And here you can control permissions available to this role. For this demo, we need to read and write schema. So we're going to add the 2. We are also going to read and write relationships, and we are going to check for permissions. So we will add these permissions for now. And lastly, you need to create a policy to bind this role to your service account. So click on policies and click the create policy button and give it a name, a description, and you can choose the service account that you had created in an earlier step as well as the role you had created in the earlier step, and this binds the 2 together. Hit the save button and you should be good to go. Your permission system is now ready for use. For this demo, we're going to build a simple blog app with 2 different permissions: the ability to read a blog post and the ability to write a blog post. Now in SpiceDB, you can model your use case with something called a schema. In this case, here in my blog application written in Node.js, I'm modeling my use case with schema. So I define a user and I define a blog post, and I define the relations between the user and the blog post, in which case a user can be a reader or a writer. And depending on if they're a reader or a writer, they have different permissions. In this case, the ability to read or to write a blog post. In SpiceDB, you make a write schema request to write this schema to your permission system. I've defined the token from the earlier step as well as the endpoint to our permission system that we just created on the AuthZed Cloud. That URL you can get in your AuthZed dashboard by clicking on the connect button and checking out the URL that you see here. You can also use the ZCLI to connect and test this permission system. So now that we have a schema, we have to add relationships to our permission system. Going back to our code, we can see that we have 2 users, Emilia and Beatrice. You can see we have hard-coded some relationships here between a post ID and a user. So in this case, Emilia is a writer on post 1 and Beatrice is a reader on post 1, which means Beatrice can't write to post 1. And we write all of those relationships to SpiceDB running on AuthZed Cloud with the code here. You can see the right relationships call in our code. And at this point, think about your application and what the different objects in your application might be. They're not just limited to something like a blog post, but it could be something like a banking app where you have users and bank accounts. It could be something like a code repository where you have different users and different repositories that have different permissions or levels of access. The ability to model any use case with schema is one of the advantages of using a system such as SpiceDB. Great, so we have written a schema and we have written relationships to our permission system. All that's left is for us to check for permissions. You can see in our backend code that there is the check permission method, which essentially checks the relationships between a user and a post via a permission, and in this case it is right. So when this method is called, it basically checks if the user that's logged in has right permissions on the post, which we get to know through the post ID. And if the user has permissions, you will get back a response that says, yes, the user does have permissions. And that's pretty much it. Every time a user creates a new blog post, you add a relationship between the user and the blog post. And when someone is trying to access a particular blog post, you check if there is a particular relation between the post and the user. All right, we just created a hosted SpiceDB instance on AuthZed Cloud. We wrote a schema, we wrote some relationships, and we checked for permission, all in a matter of minutes. The link to the documentation is in the description, as is the link to the repository. Let us know in the comments what app you're building for which you need a permission system, and subscribe for more content on authorization. See you in the next one.